But what's up with Oklahoma's recruiting? Why does it feel like it's kind of slowed down, sluggish? We'll discuss coming up next here on Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. Tune in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Jay, the Oklahoma Sooners only have 4 players currently committed to the 2026 recruiting class, and they're all on the offensive side of the ball, which to me is a little bit shocking. But you know that the defensive recruits will come, because Brent Venables is here. Todd Bates, Miguel Chavis, Brandon Hall, and Jay Valai have done an excellent job on the recruiting trail. Nate Dreiling is going to get things done at linebacker. Everybody's already raving about his energy as a coach. Mm-hmm. You know that that's going to spill over into his recruiting efforts as well, hopefully giving Oklahoma a bit of a boost, because they're getting pretty thin at linebacker simply through attrition, like guys graduating, guys going off to the NFL. It's you had a couple transfer portal departures that hurt your depth a little bit. But Jay, why is Oklahoma's recruiting kind of where it's at right now? They've only got the 4 players. You got a theory as to what's going on right there?
To be 100% honest, it really kind of feels like it's it's Nagy. It kind of feels like adding in your general manager, him bringing in Taylor Reed as his assistant general manager. To me, I feel like they're evaluating the current roster first. A combination of that and the spring portal, because the only thing good about recruiting is that recruiting is not going to end until December. You've got all year to truly figure out. Now, you don't want to not begin the engagement with players and at least get those conversations started. So, you know, Brent Venables, Todd Bates, DeMarco Murray, Emmett Jones, etc. All, you know, they're pinging these players, getting to know them. They're in group chats, sending them messages on a regular basis saying, hey, following up and all of that. So you know that they are actually in communication with a lot of these players. But the thing you also know is that they're not... They're doing a more internal scouting. You need to have a better understanding of what players you have, what players you know you're going to keep around, and make a determination of who needs to kind of go to the portal, who do we think will go to the portal, and who they think they're going to bring in. Because if anything, the major focus is going to have to be winning games this year, not 2026, not 2027. Wins need to happen this year. And so that's what it feels like. That's where the focus is as of right now.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You bring in a new general manager. He's going to have his own thoughts on roster construction, on positional value, on how to manage the salary cap, and how to prioritize the revenue sharing and NIL funding. And so it's going to take a minute to get that accomplished. And then along with that, evaluating the 2026 recruiting class, evaluating the players that the coaches like. You know, are they actually the players that are good fits for Oklahoma? It's going to be a collective effort now. Jim Nagy is going to be looking at all of that, and he's going to be putting his 2 cents in about, okay, you like this player, tell me why you like this player. Okay, he's a fit. I can see what you're seeing. Or if it's a player that a coach likes and Jim Nagy's just like, I don't know, they'll have more discussion on it, and they'll continue to build their recruiting board as they go. But it might take some time. But as you mentioned, they're still having those conversations. They're still having those big recruiting weekends and trying to lay the groundwork and build relationships. And they're going to have several more big recruiting weekends over the summer that will be the impetus for a lot of that recruiting momentum. We saw it in I think it was the 2024 recruiting class, right? Going into the summer, they didn't really have a lot of commitments, maybe 3 or 4. I can't remember exactly how many. Like, they didn't get their first one until March of that cycle.
Yeah.
Jeremiah Newcomb, right? And then the next one was Michael Hawkins after that. And you still only had 2 or 3 guys committed by summertime. But then once summer came, everything started to snowball, and you really started to see Oklahoma making big movements. You still had a couple big fish that you were working on, David Stone being the one that you wanted to lock in, but that summer of 2020 of the 2024 cycle and back in the summer of 2023, like that was a huge summer. It was like every week. And sometimes you get 2 commitments in a day and several in a week. And it was just constant. And so I think we'll see something similar here as Oklahoma gets through spring ball. And like you mentioned, as they evaluate what the roster is going to look like right now, who's going to have to be processed, unfortunately, where they need to attack the transfer portal to get some help. Those are going to be the priorities right now.
Yeah. And that's a tradition, I guess you could say, as old as the game itself when it comes to Oklahoma, because again, we typically don't get a lot of commitments until May, June, July. I remember once the Brent Venables era really started, and that's when I even really started my channel, really started going myself. I would have videos and stuff just going like crazy throughout the summer. It was always late May, June, July, all those OV weekends. And then August, the class was just about done. Like by the time school started for the high school kids, we were just about finished with the entire class. You'd probably get 1 or 2 that will commit throughout the season because, they want to do it at a special game. Like David Stone did it, on one of the national televised games on ESPN. So he knocked that out. You have Asusi right before, so you'll have some that'll pop off throughout the year. Some will do it right after a football game when they do an OV during the season. So there's always a good chance a lot of that stuff can happen. But for Oklahoma, they typically focus it on the middle of the season because the one thing we know Brent Venables has is his visit policy. He asks you, and I think this is the misconception that a lot of people have when it comes to this. So let me go ahead and give you all a quick Cliff's Notes on it. If you commit and you go do another visit, that's not, your offer isn't getting pulled. That's only if you're doing something, very nefarious or something, right? That's the only time they actually pull them. But in the eyes of the coaching staff is that if you commit and then you go do other visits, you're not really committed. And for them, they're going to continue to recruit over you. And in the end, if you both decide to come together and be done, then you come together and be done. But for Oklahoma, their big thing is that they want guys that say, okay, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to be done with the process, similar to what Clemson does today. And it kind of helps eliminate a lot of the dramatic decommitments throughout the year. As we all know, there's one school right now at the tops of recruiting right now, and they always are in April. And then when the end of July hits, there's like 7 or 8 decommitments by then. And Oklahoma usually finishes the year with like 3 decommitments, which is, you're going to have turnover. That's a good thing. So don't think that people, like I said, the Jaden O'Neal visit piece is specifically because he was told he was the only quarterback. Now they need a second. And so he's just making sure that he's not being pushed out, just in case. And besides that, you're going to probably see a lot of kids do their final commitments with Oklahoma this summer, and then they'll be done. But Jim Nagy's also going to have a major hand in deciding what makes sense.
Yeah, and I'll be curious to see, do they go with another light class like they did with the 2025 recruiting cycle, or do they jump back up to the 24 or 25 kids that we saw in the previous 2 cycles? Because the roster limitation situation is going to be interesting to manage for every college football program across the country. Are they going to still try to take big classes, or are they going to go a little bit lighter and then rely on the transfer portal to kind of fill needs along the way? That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much. You thought maybe you had something else to say there? Or
I was going to say, to add to that real quick, sorry, as we're about to wrap up, is that the smaller class last year and kids jumping in quickly to get themselves committed to, like we saw some early commitments and stuff for 25 and 26, felt like a lot of them were trying to get in before we found out what the final numbers are. Mm-hmm. Well, now that we know what they are, most of these kids are probably like, okay, let me go ahead and make sure I make the right decision, because I'm going to be one of few. And the same thing with the coaching staff. I want to make sure that we pick the right person. It'll be one of few, and the classes will be now balanced out. So I think we're at that point, though.
Yeah, it's just going to be fascinating to watch to see how this 2026 recruiting class goes. Again, Oklahoma's got 4 guys committed, all 4 on the offensive side of the ball: Jaden O'Neal, Daniel Odom, Ryder Mix, and Will Conroy. A super underrated offensive lineman who's down there at IMG Academy right now. So basically he's training for football. Like, he's going to school for football as a high schooler. that's worked out pretty well so far with Oklahoma in the past. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in, being a part of the show. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. So hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. But for sure, hit that subscribe button. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can follow me at John 9 Williams. You can read my work, cover the Sooners, over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. But until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. We'll talk to you then. Boomer Sooner.